Hey friends, Dave Trotter here with Awaken Magazine. Before we dive into this episode, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our podcast. So if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon Music, click subscribe. Every platform's just a little bit different, but this will ensure that you get every single episode delivered right to your phone. And if you have just an extra minute, rate and review the show. That is a quick way to help us spread the word and help more people discover the incredible interviews that we release each and every week. All right, let's dive into this episode.
Welcome to the Awakened Magazine AI Conversations podcast with your hosts, Micah and Aurora. Today's episode is based on a recent feature interview with Igor Galibov. The thoughts and opinions shared today are generated by AI and not by the publishers of Awakened Magazine itself. And a very warm welcome to all of you joining us right now. We are so incredibly grateful you're sharing your time with us for this deep dive. Today, we're exploring a journey that, honestly, it completely shatters the conventional boundaries of what we think is possible. We are diving into the extraordinary life and the profound teachings of Igor Galibov. He's the founder of the Alignment of Light Academy, and his story is just wild.
It really is, and it is truly wonderful to be here with you all today exploring this. The intention for our time together is to just set a deeply expansive, really open-hearted tone. We are going to unpack Igor's remarkable transformation. I mean, this is someone who went from being a 24-year-old finance guy, totally embedded in a conventional 3D worldview, into a master of inner alchemy. So we'll be looking closely at his insights on our multidimensional spiritual anatomy, how we can practically bridge the 3D and 5D realities, and ultimately, how you, the listener, can become a fully grounded conduit of light in your own everyday life.
Yeah, and the starting point of this journey is really what makes it so compelling because it begins in such an unexpectedly grounded place. Let's set the scene for you. The year is 2004. Igor is 24 years old. And at this point in his life, he has absolutely no connection to spirituality. None.
Right, zero.
He is fresh out of school for finance, working in the corporate world, and by his own admission, his main focus is just figuring out where to party and how to enjoy life. But then his mother becomes very ill with a tumor. His family hears about a well-known healer in a small town outside of São Paulo, Brazil. And his father suggests he take his mother there, and Igor figures, hey, it's essentially a free trip to Brazil. The plan is literally to drop her off at the healer and then head straight to the beaches.
Which is such a remarkably relatable human starting point, you know? He didn't go to Brazil seeking enlightenment or an expansion of consciousness. He went purely out of family obligation. And when he arrived, he was completely skeptical. He's seeing thousands of people dressed in white waiting in line for what they were calling spiritual surgeries, and he's just not buying it.
Yeah, and that skepticism makes the leap to what happens next so jarring. Because how does a finance guy who just wants to hit the beach end up having a reality-shattering out-of-body experience?
Right. And it happened while he was simply sitting in a room just waiting for his mother. According to Igor, an undeniable inner voice suddenly told him to get up and get in line for a visual spiritual surgery himself.
Which is so out of character for him at that time.
Totally out of character. But he followed the impulse. He walked up to the healer, who was completely in a trance state. The healer spoke to him in Portuguese, a language Igor didn't even understand. And then the healer took his thumb and placed it directly inside Igor's mouth.
Just this completely visceral, unexpected physical contact.
Absolutely. And that physical contact was the catalyst. Igor describes watching this healer take surgical scissors, place them into Igor's nose, and strike them with the palm of his hand straight up to the top of his skull. And the fascinating part is how Igor experienced this. I want to share exactly how he described it because his words are so powerful. He said, next thing I know, I'm out of my body, standing behind him, looking at myself. That moment has changed my whole reality of what I thought, what I perceived, how I breathe, how I think, how I eat, everything completely shifted for me.
Wow. That immediacy is just staggering. To feel the physical sensation, but observe it from outside your own physical form. He mentioned in the interview trying with all his might to open his physical eyes and being unable to, until suddenly in a flash, he was slammed back into his physical body. So what happens in the immediate aftermath of an activation like that?
Well, his subtle senses activated almost instantaneously. He went back to his room, and within 24 hours, he began feeling spheres of energy flying straight through him. When he walked outside, he felt as though he was wearing a heavy hat made entirely of energy. And even more profound, he felt his hands literally drop down into the core of the earth. He was physically walking around on the surface, but energetically, he was touching the Earth's molten center.
Oh, and he also had that incredible moment walking past a coffee shop where he saw a cow standing there.
Right. His physical vision suddenly transitioned into energetic vision. He could see straight through the cow to its internal organs. His hands naturally reached out energetically, and he felt the sensation of holding the cow's heart.
And keep in mind, this is someone with a finance background, not anatomy or energy healing. He had no framework whatsoever for what was happening to his reality.
None at all. Thankfully, while he was still there, he met a clairvoyant medium named Frank. And Frank revealed that Igor didn't just undergo that single visible surgery, he'd actually received 9 different energetic surgeries, and his entire chakra system had been blown wide open. Frank warned him that he really needed to learn how to protect himself.
But Igor didn't fully comprehend until that sensitivity collided with the real world. You mentioned earlier that he had a massive spiritual opening, but zero wisdom on how to navigate it. So how did that lack of protection play out once he left Brazil?
Yeah, that came to a head a few months later. Igor was visiting Frank in London. They were walking down the street, and a homeless man suddenly locked eyes with Igor and started screaming "Energist" at him. The man then took what Igor perceived as visible, black, energetic goo and physically threw it at him. The energy hit Igor's knee and stuck there. And the result wasn't just energetic. His physical knee actually locked up. He couldn't bend it and had to limp back to Frank's loft.
How did they manage to clear something so dense and physicalized?
Once they were back, Frank took a white book and used it to physically pull and absorb this black energy right out of Igor's knee. That book happened to be The Keys of Enoch.
And this is where the story shifts from a fascinating spiritual encounter into a really profound lesson about how we actually acquire higher wisdom. But Igor didn't sit down and study the book, did he?
No, not at all. He simply grabbed the book and opened it. He didn't read a single word. Instead, he described golden letters and geometric symbols physically flying out of the pages and into his face. He started receiving massive cosmic downloads right then and there. And he actually had a very similar experience earlier with Mantak Chia's book, The Multi-Orgasmic Man, where just opening the book caused his entire chakra system to light up and start spinning.
That idea that we absorb information through frequency rather than just intellect, it really challenges our conventional reliance on the brain. We're so conditioned to believe that we must intellectually consume, analyze, and memorize text to gain knowledge.
It completely reframes the concept of learning. Igor's experience suggests that higher wisdom is received through resonance. You don't always have to decipher the text. Sometimes simply holding the frequency of the consciousness that channeled that information is enough to trigger an awakening code within your own DNA.
That concept of frequency over physical matter actually bleeds perfectly into Igor's wider, somewhat radical view of human anatomy altogether, because he teaches spiritual anatomy in a way that shifts the entire perspective of what a human being actually is.
The fundamental principle Igor operates from is that we are not inside our bodies. We're actually inside our soul.
So the body is contained within the soul, not the other way around. How large is the soul structure?
He describes the soul as a massive toroidal field. Imagine a giant spiraling energetic donut or a vast magnetic field that extends 50 feet in every direction around us. Our physical form is simply sitting at the very core, the dense center of this massive toroidal field.
If we think about the practical implications of a 50-foot energetic radius, it changes how we navigate the world. Like, if I'm sitting on a crowded subway train or working in an open-plan office, my toroidal field is overlapping with dozens of other people's fields. We are constantly swimming in each other's soul architecture.
Precisely. And within that massive field, Igor maps out very specific layers or energy bodies. He doesn't just view the physical body as flesh and bone. He teaches that our physical organs are actually designed to digest emotions and beliefs, not just physical food.
Hold on, digesting beliefs. We usually think of the brain processing abstract things like beliefs and the stomach processing an apple. How does Igor separate those functions?
In his framework, the density of an unexpressed emotion or a rigid belief eventually crystallizes and has to be processed by the physical organs. The physical body is the final, densest layer of a much larger energetic filtration system. Radiating out from the physical, we have the etheric body, which you might perceive as a faint white silhouette around someone if you soften your gaze. Igor connects this layer deeply to our infant self.
And then beyond that is the emotional body, which he associates with the resonance of our inner child.
Correct. And outside of that is the mental body, which is directly connected to our teenage self.
Associating the mental body with the teenage self makes so much sense when you pause to think about it. That is the exact developmental age where we start intellectually rebelling, forming our rigid identities, and locking into specific dogmas. It's a very memorable way to conceptualize that layer of our energy.
It gives you a roadmap for where certain traumas reside. When you combine those four layers, the physical, etheric, emotional, and mental thrive, they create what Igor calls the astral body. This is where our astral twin operates when we are in the dream state. According to his teachings, it is in this astral plane that the actual geometric blueprints for our physical reality are drafted and created.
Then extending even further out is the causal body.
Yes, the causal body is literally the cause of our existence in this dimension. It's the layer that draws information, wisdom, and sometimes unresolved karmic cycles from simultaneous lifetimes playing out across the multiverse.
This breakdown offers a massive aha moment for anyone listening who is actively doing deep internal work. Have you ever spent months healing a core wound, finally felt completely free of it, and then years later a random event triggers it, and it just comes right back? It can feel incredibly discouraging, like you failed or regressed. But through Igor's framework, how should we view that recurrence?
You view it as an expansion. Igor explains that you actually did heal the wound at that specific frequency. When it comes back, you are not regressing. You are simply healing it at a higher dimensional octave. You are clearing a parallel timeline or reaching a deeper, wider layer of your toroidal field that you previously didn't have the capacity to access. You aren't going backward. You're expanding outward.
That is an incredibly empowering reframing. But as amazing as all this spiritual expansion is, Igor also speaks very candidly about the pitfalls of this journey. After his initial awakening, he fell into what we might call the trap of the ether. What did that period of his life look like?
For 4 straight years following his experiences in Brazil and London, Igor went into extreme isolation. He was meditating 16 to 18 hours a day. He was traveling the cosmos, fully immersed in the higher realms. He talks about connecting with higher dimensional guides like the karmic board and the blue beings.
For those of us who might be unfamiliar with his specific cosmology, who or what exactly are the karmic board and the blue beings?
In esoteric traditions, the karmic board refers to a collective of ascended consciousnesses that help souls review their incarnations and balance their karmic lessons. The blue beings are often described as highly evolved, multidimensional entities associated with pure truth, advanced healing technologies, and cosmic blueprints. So Igor was directly communing with these profound levels of intelligence.
He even mentioned manifesting actual physical lapis gold falling into his lap during this time. He was living in total bliss. But what was the reality of his life back here on Earth?
It was falling apart. He was completely disconnected from the 3D world. He ended up racking up $150,000 in credit card debt. He had acquired all the spiritual power in the universe, but he severely lacked earthly wisdom. He was essentially waiting for these multidimensional guides to fix his 3D life. Eventually, they gave him a wake-up call, basically telling him, you chose to incarnate in the third dimension. It is your responsibility to create and manage reality there.
That realization led to one of the most grounding insights from his entire interview. He said, my mission is to close the gap between the 3D and 5D and become a co-creator on all levels.
That quote perfectly encapsulates spiritual maturity. It raises a fascinating point about the balance of energies required to actually manifest reality. Igor realized he was spending all his time exclusively in the feminine charge of creation.
And how does he define that feminine charge in the context of manifestation?
He defines the feminine energy as the stillness, the meditation, the visionary aspect. It is the energy required to create the flawless geometric blueprint in the astral plane we discussed earlier. But without the masculine charge, which represents physical action, momentum, the building blocks in the dense world, nothing ever anchors into the 3D material realm. The blueprint just stays floating in the ether.
So he had to actively force himself back into participating with physical reality. What is truly inspiring is how he applies this practical alchemy in his life today. He runs a 3D home care business, providing nursing care. It is a completely grounded, seemingly mundane physical business, but he runs it like an alchemist.
He uses the mechanics of the unseen to drive the seen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before the work week begins, he gathers his managers and his employees in an actual meditation room at their office. They sit together, they breathe, and they connect to the higher realms. They build the energetic vision and the geometry of their week in the astral plane first. And the result of that practice, the dense 3D work becomes effortless. The employees are balanced, joyful, and highly effective.
The core takeaway he offers us here is profound. If you are fundamentally made out of energy, you have to change the energy first. Once the energetic blueprint is solidified in the astral, the physical matter will naturally shift to reflect it. Most of humanity is exhausting themselves trying to forcefully push physical matter around to change their reality. Igor saying, build the perfect magnetic field first, and you won't even have to try to attract things. You simply step into the timeline where those things already exist.
To hold that kind of pure creative frequency, though, you had to be fiercely protective of your energy. And Igor had a massive realization about this that I think every single spiritual seeker navigating the modern world can relate to. He refers to it as his Walmart epiphany.
This is such a vital teaching for anyone who identifies as an empath or a highly sensitive person.
Yeah, he was finding that whenever he went into crowded, dense 3D spaces like a Walmart or a busy shopping mall, he would come out feeling totally drained. It would take him 2 or 3 days of deep meditation just to clear his energy field and feel like himself again. He initially assumed the heavy, chaotic energy of the environment was attacking him.
Which is the standard assumption. We blame the environment. But when Igor looked closer at the unseen dynamics of those interactions, he realized it wasn't the place draining him at all. The drain was being caused by his own judgment.
That is a tough pill to swallow, taking radical self-responsibility for the energy leak. How exactly does judgment drain us?
Igor saw that the moment he judged the people, the products, or the environment around him, perhaps echoing the subconscious judgments of his parents or his lineage, he was actively throwing out an invisible energetic thread. That thread of judgment hooked right into the darkness or density he was observing. His judgment was the bridge that allowed his energy to be siphoned away.
So the solution isn't to put up a massive shield to block the world. It's to terminate the judgment entirely.
Precisely. When you drop judgment, you stop reaching out horizontally to fix, condemn, or separate yourself from others. All that power retracts back into your core. You start leaking energy horizontally, and instead you use it to build what Igor calls a vertical fluorescent tube of light, straight up to source. You become an independent, sovereign pillar of divine light, unaffected by the chaos around you because you are no longer tethering yourself to it.
When you hold that vertical pillar, the impact on the people around you happens naturally, without forcing it. Igor experienced this dynamic beautifully with his own parents. When he first came back from Brazil, they thought he had lost his mind. They were operating purely in survival mode, having migrated from the Soviet Union. As seekers, we often desperately want our families to validate our spiritual awakenings. How did he navigate that lack of understanding?
He realized he had to let go of the need for their approval. He just kept doing his own internal work, holding his vertical connection. And beautifully, about 4 or 5 years ago, his father decided to attend one of Igor's men's circles. During that gathering, his father experienced a massive, profound activation of his own heart chakra. He felt burning sensations down his arms, and his heart cracked wide open. Today, both of his parents are his students, attending his retreats and pilgrimages.
That is incredibly moving.
It leads to Igor's deeper insight into why we incarnate where we do. He reminds us that on a soul level, we explicitly choose our DNA, our lineage, and our parents. We choose the exact strictness, or even the exact lack of love we might experience, specifically because those conditions provide the exact friction needed for us to recognize our own divine soul. True spiritual liberation doesn't come from changing your parents so they accept you. It comes from accepting them completely for who they are, recognizing they are the key codes to your own awakening.
Every challenge, every dense environment, every difficult relationship is simply an opportunity to stop reaching horizontally in judgment and instead build your vertical connection to source.
As we bring this deep dive to a close, we want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over. We talked earlier about Igor's teaching that our physical organs are designed to digest beliefs and emotions, not just food. Before we go, consider this. If that is true, what junk food beliefs are you forcing your physical body to process right now? What old dogmas or horizontal judgments are currently taxing your physical organs? It completely changes how we view physical vitality and illness. You are an integral, active, vibrating spark of source. When you align your physical, emotional, mental, and astral bodies, you step into your birthright as a conscious co-creator. Notice where you are leaking energy this week and see if you can lovingly pull that thread back and send that energy vertically instead.
What a beautiful invitation for all of us. And if you want to experience this alignment directly, Igor offers free guided meditations for the collective every single Tuesday on Zoom. He's been doing this freely since 2014, channeling wisdom directly from higher dimensional states. Also, since it is currently February 2026, we want to make sure you know about a profoundly powerful upcoming pilgrimage Igor is leading. This June 2026, he is taking a group to Turkey.
That pilgrimage is going to be incredibly potent. Turkey holds a major chakra point for the earth, specifically serving as a gateway to the divine feminine. They will be visiting the final home of Mother Mary and the ancient temples of Artemis. They will be working directly with the energy of Sophia, which represents the highest embodiment of divine feminine wisdom and creative essence, to integrate soul fragments and deeply activate that feminine charge of creation we explored today.
It sounds absolutely life-changing. We hope this conversation has left you feeling deeply empowered, spiritually expanded, and ready to walk through your day as a clear, grounded conduit of light. Be sure to subscribe to the Awaken Magazine podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music.
Thank you so much for walking this expansive path of awakening alongside us. May your week be filled with pristine alignment, deep inner peace, and miraculous synchronicities.
Until next time, stay radiant, stay connected to your source, and remember how incredibly powerful you truly are. Sending you all so much love.
Hey friends, Dave Trotter here with Awaken Magazine. Before we dive into this episode, I want to encourage you to subscribe to our podcast. So if you're listening on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or Amazon Music, click subscribe. Every platform's just a little bit different, but this will ensure that you get every single episode delivered right to your phone. And if you have just an extra minute, rate and review the show. That is a quick way to help us spread the word and help more people discover the incredible interviews that we release each and every week. All right, let's dive into this episode.